بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وبارك على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we have reached our next discussion, the next chapter discussion in ʿUmdatul Fiqh, which is the discussion after the Sifat al-Ḥajj, so the specific actions that we were talking about in relation to the Hajj itself. Naam. And who can mention these actions again in summary? The actions in summary and when they occur. So it's the first thing that will happen in Hajj. The first thing. The Ihram. Naam. So you've got the Ihram. What day? You're asking me to know.
Come back.
Huh?
I say, Ihram, I say, come back.
No Tarweeh, which is?
The 8th day.
No. You said it in my chest. No, the 8th day. The 8th day. Naam. And on the 8th day you head to where? Miqāt? No. To Minā. Naam. Head to Minā. And then what is done at Minā? You pray which prayers? Dhuhr and Asr. Okay. Then? So on the 8th day. So on the 8th day. It was Dhuhr and Asr.
Till 9 and back to the Arafah.
On the 9th day, you mean?
Yeah, 9 days.
So of course you have to pray Maghrib Isha. So Fajr, that's all Fajr?
Fajr, yeah, pray then go to...
So the Fajr you pray in Minā as well. So this is the 9th day now. So, and then essentially when do you head to, where do you head and when do you head there? On the 9th day. Head to Arafah, that's the where and the when?
Is it after Asr?
After Asr.
After the rising of the sun?
Now, so after the sunrise or يعني the Zawal. What time is Zawal? You head to Arafah. What do you do at Arafah? Dhuhr Asr. Qasm Jama. Okay. It's dua. يعني generally the day is for dua. Naam. And you listen to what? Khutbah. The khutbah addressed at Arafah. طيب. After that? The something. You head to Muzdalifah. No, you head to Muzdalifah. So, and you stay the night in Muzdalifah or you continue?
Stay the night.
You stay the night in Muzdalifah. Naam. And you pray Fajr. And then you head to where? Back to Minā. Naam. So, and which day are we in now? Al-Nahr. Now the 10th day. What actions are required for the person to do on that day? Sacrifice. Shaving the head, okay. Stoning. The Jamarat. Tawaf al-Ifrād.
I think this been the learning on the Tartib Ahsan. They can say on Tartib.
No. But first, what are the actions first? Then we say.
Then Af'iyah, then Tawaf al-Ifrād, then Sa'i bin Safa al-Marwa, then Halaq.
So,
Then back to Minā.
so you have the Jamarat, slaughter, Tawaf,
Sa'i Safa al-Marwa,
Sa'i,
then Halaq,
then the shaving the head. These are the 5 things done on that day. Then you head back to Minā. Because of course, when you do the tawaf's done where? Haram, Makkah. So it's not going to be the same place in Minā. You head back to Minā. And that's where we are here. And so this is the chapter which pertains to بَعْدَ مَا يَفْعَلُهُ بَعْدَ حِلْ. And so what does the Hajj, what does the pilgrim do after they've left the state of Ihram, i.e. the first time? So we distinguish when we mention the things, when we mention about Ihram, we mentioned that the person leaves the state of Ihram how many times for Umrah? How many times for Umrah? Once. How many times for Hajj? Twice. Naam. And so this is referring to the first time. What's the difference between the first and the second? Barakallahu feek. What's the difference between the first and the second?
After the first one, you can do everything except for Jamaat.
Except for Jamaat. Naam. So, the first one, as for the first, then everything is halal except for al-Jamaat. Naam. Marital relations. طيب. So Ibn Qudāmah raḥimahullah, he mentions ثم يرجع إلى منى ولا يبيت لياليها إلا بها فيرمي بها الجمرة بعد الزوال من أيامها كل جمرة 7 حصيات. And so was understood that this is after the person has left Makkah, they return to Minā. And they stay in Minā for the nights. And the nights that they stay in Minā, they cannot stay the nights except within Minā. Now they cannot stay the nights except in Minā. And thereafter, whilst in Minā, they throw the jamarat, or they throw the stones at the jamarat, hasayat. And these are referring to the small stones that are thrown at the jamarat. And so what we understand is from this, barakallahu fikum, that a person has to stay in Minā. Now, so a person cannot now stay these nights, for example, in Aziziyah, or in Makkah. Rather, the Hajj has to stay in Minā. Okay? And so here, the Shaykh mentions, there are some wajibat that are outlined, some of the obligations that are outlined. And from these wajibat, from these obligations, is that the person, they stay in Minā for the period of 2 nights. Or, if they so wish, 3. If they intend, they can stay 3 nights. Then the wajib al-thani, the second obligation, which is the rami jamrat. So they throw the stones at the 3 separate jamarat. The 3 separate jamarat. And we mentioned how many do they throw? 7. They throw the stones at the jamarat, and there's 7 of them. So it begins at the first of the jamarat, whilst facing the Qibla, and he throws the stones 7 times. And thereafter he makes dua, فَيَدْعُ ثُمَّ يأتي الوسطى فيرميها كذلك. Then he comes to the middle, so the second of the 3, and then he does the throwing in the same manner. Does the throwing in the same manner. And then he goes to the final one, and performs the same actions. ثم يرمي في اليوم الثاني كذلك, and so he does the same thing on the second day. Now, the same thing on the second day, the throwing of the stones. So, what we understand from this, barakallahu feekum, is that this is the specific action which has been legislated for these days. Naam, are the two obligations for these days or these nights. The first obligation is what? Did you mention? Something before that. The first obligation. That where do you have to stay? You have to stay in Minā. Naam, for these layam. And with that as well, the second obligation is the throwing of the stones of Jamarat. So, as is mentioned, that the person is permitted to do it, permitted to stay for 2 nights, or if they so wish, they can stay for the 3rd night. Naam. But however, the minimum is that they stay for the 2 nights. The minimum is that they stay there for the 2 nights. And so, if the person is mentioned here by Ibn Qudāmah, فإن أحب يتعجل في يومين خرج قبل الغروب. And if the person wishes to leave after 2 nights, naam, then it's upon them to leave after the sunset, or rather before the sun sets. It's upon them to leave before the sun sets. Why? Why do they have to leave before the sun sets?
Once it sets, it's the next day.
It's the next
Next
night.
night.
Now, so once the sun set, they've entered into the next night. Naam. Hence, they've entered into the 3rd night. So, we understand from this, barakallahu feekum, that the Hajj, the pilgrim, he can stay for 2 nights or 3 nights. Naam, 2 whole nights or 3 whole nights. Naam. As soon as he enters into that 3rd night now, then he is obligated to remain. Now, because he's begun that night now. So, as Ibn Qudāmah mentioned, فإن أحب يتعجل في يومين خرج قبل الغروب. If the person wishes to leave after the 2 nights, then he leaves before the sunset. فإن غربت الشمس وهو بمنى لزم هو المبيت بالمنى. And so, if the sun sets and he's in Minā, right? If the sun sets whilst he's at Minā, then what becomes an obligation upon him? What becomes an obligation upon him is that he remains in Minā. Now, what becomes an obligation upon him is that he remains in Minā. وَالرَّمِي مِنْ غَدْ. And along with that as well, the stoning. Naam, the stoning becomes an obligation upon him. Naam, does that make sense, barakallahu feekum? So because now if the person, say for example, the person intends to leave after 2 nights, now, for whatever reason, he hasn't left Minā and now the sun has set, so the Maghrib has come in. And now he's now entered into the 3rd night. So he's obligated now to stay for that 3rd night. So, what we understand from that is that the nights are attached to the days. So the action of the nights, anything that's an obligation for you to do in the night, then know that the day is also an obligation for you, as well as the action of the day. Naam. So because that night has now become an obligation upon him, the day which follows the night, naam, is also an obligation for him. And what is the obligation within that day? The stoning. Naam. So even if, irrespective of whatever's happened, if the person intended to leave after those 2 nights, however, he's delayed and he ends up staying in Minā, he must stay for those 3 nights as well as do the actions of the 3rd day as well. Now, the 3rd day, which is the throwing of the stone. Now, does it make sense, Barakallahu Feek? So, فإن كان متمتعا أو قارنا فقد عنق حجه وعمرته. وإن كان مفردا خرج إلى تنعيم فأهرم بالعمرة منه ثم يأتي مكة ويطوف ويسعى ويهلك ويقصر. فإن لم يكن له شعر استحب أن يمر الموسى على رأسه وقد تم الحج وعمرته. And so, with that as well, Ibn Qudāmah, he mentions the affair of the one that's performing the tamattuʿ. Then with this, they completed their Hajj. Now the one mutamattiʿ, or the one that has performed the Hajj al-qirān. So Hajj al-tamattuʿ, Hajj al-qirān are what? What do they have in common? Umrah is within that action. Now, what separates the two is the fact that the person leaves the state of ihram or remains in the state of ihram. So, however, the person, whilst doing this, they have completed their Hajj. So once they completed the days and they're staying in Minā, whether it be 2 nights or 3 nights, then they have completed their Hajj. If it is, the person is upon or doing the Hajj al-tamattuʿ or doing the Hajj al-qirān. As for the one that is doing the Hajj al-ifrād, the mufrid, then the mufrid, upon him is to cut something from the hair, and this signals the end of his Hajj. Now, to cut something from the hair. And so, with that we understand, as well as Ibn Qudāmah mentions, that even if the person has no hair, then he puts something upon his head, i.e. the shaving cream upon his head, and wipes it off, as a symbol of him completing those manasik. So here, barakallahu feekum, you have the distinction between the one that is the mutamattiʿ, the qarin, and the mufrid. So here we're referring to what though? Which hil? Hil al-awwal or thani? These points we just mentioned, is it hil al-awwal or thani? أول الحل الأول. نعم. Okay, then what's the حل الثاني? That's the حل الأول. What's the حل الثاني? What's the حل الثاني? How does that occur? We're talking, this is what happened after the 3 nights. So we said it's a hil al-awwal. So what's the hil al-thani?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum as-salam.
It's about what signals the end.
Now, so the hil al-thani will be what then?
As in, what is its ended?
How do you know it's ended? Yeah, how do you know now that the person has performed the hil al-thani? Slaughter? Which is, the slaughter's already happened. All this has already happened. Sah? I was saying this is after the 3 nights. طيب تمتع أو المفرد كل ما شئت. سواء كان متمتع أو مفرد. على كل نعم. The reason why it's so difficult to answer is because that is the Hil al-Thani. Now, remember we discussed already the Hil al-Awwal. The Hil al-Awwal is after the day of Yawm al-Nahr, the day of Eid, sahih? Where the person does those 5 actions. Sahih? The person does those 5 actions. That's the Hil al-Awwal. Naam. Then you have the Hil al-Thani. So the Hil al-Awwal, the person performs those 5 actions. What are those 5 actions again? The slaughter, shaving the head, tawaf, ifrād, the sa'i, the is it shaving the head already? The stoning. Naam. These are the 5 actions. After the 5 actions are complete, then you completed the Hil al-Awwal. طيب. Then we come to the Hil al-Thani, now to the second, which is what? Depending upon what? What does it depend upon? The type of Hajj. Depends on the type of Hajj that the person is doing. So if the person is doing Hajj al-Tamattuʿ or Hajj al-qirān, then it's how? But how do you enter the Hil al-Thani? Or leave the state of Ihram? The stoning? It's not the stoning. No, stoning. Once you've left Minā. Then you're stoning, you've left Minā. No, I'm not saying. Once you've done the stoning and you've left Minā. يعني. This is for the tamattuʿ and the qirān. Naam, essentially, when the person has completed the actions of either the 2 nights or the 3 nights. Naam. Remember they have the choice, 2 nights or 3 nights. Once they completed the action of the 2 nights or the 3 nights, then that's the end of their Hajj. Naam. So there's no actual action, yani, opposed to, for example, if you're doing Umrah, we do the cutting of the hair, the shaving of the hair, or the shortening of the hair, or opposed to the Hil al-Awwal where you have the shaving of the hair. There's no specific action that indicates the end of the, yani, or the Hil al-Thani for these individuals. For the person that is performing the Hajj al-Tamattuʿ or Hajj al-Qirān. واضح? طيب, the Mufrid, what does he do? Shave the hair. The Mufrid does the shaving of the hair, or if there is no hair to shave, no, puts the shaving cream on the head and then washes it thereof, or takes whatever he can to take from the head. So, as for, we discussed as well, as for the cutting, the shortening the hair, or the shaving of the hair, then which action is better? Which action takes precedence? The shaving. The shaving takes precedence. That carries more virtue, you're saying? Why? Nah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made dua for the one that shaved the hair 3 times. And that's for the one that shortens once. Nah, so the one that shaved the hair, then he made dua for him 3 times. That's one that shortens, they make dua for him once. Now, and with that, barakallahu feekum, we'll leave it with those points there, inshallah, and continue thereafter. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Barakallahu feekum, ikhwan. Jazakumullah khairan.